What's up, Flick Connection? This is Darren, and today I want to give you the top 10 film noir movies currently available on Netflix. Now, what is film noir? By definition, it's a film genre marked by a mood of pessimism, fatalism, and menace, and was originally applied to American thriller or detective films made between 1944 and 1954. But as of today, it's sort of branched out. Now, it does tend to kind of stick with the detective motif, but there are some other neo noir or modern noir films that aren't exactly detective movies. A really good example that's not on Netflix that you should definitely watch is Brick, starring Joseph Gordon Levitt, which was actually Rian Johnson's first film. He is the director of the latest Star Wars movie. So if you're into Star Wars, you haven't seen his other work, definitely check out Brick. That's a great place to start, but don't expect anything similar to what you're going to get with his new Star Wars flick. Now, as usual, this is a top 10 list. If you have additional recommendations of things you've seen on Netflix you want to recommend, put them in the comments below. People will read those and get additional recommendations. But we'll go ahead and start with the list at number 10 with a Netflix original that a lot of people have missed. No one's talking about this movie. It's called Wheelman. Now, this movie stars Frank Grillo, who you might recognize from the Purge movies and a handful of others. He's a good actor. I really like him a lot. He looks the same in every movie, but he's really good for this one. And it's a shame more people didn't see this. If you were a fan of Drive, you will like this movie. Is it as good as Drive? No. That's why no one's talking about it. But it is good. It is interesting. It's also similar to Locke, starring Tom Hardy, as 95% of the movie is filmed from inside or just outside his car as he is a getaway driver. Won't tell you any more than that, but it's interesting. He's not a detective, but it does have a mystery solving element to it, and it fits right in with that dark, moody atmosphere. It's very much a modern noir flick. At number 9, I'm going to go with a movie called Detour. A lot of people not talking about this one either. It's a great fit right at number 9 as it's pretty good, but not great. But it does star Ty Sheridan, who is actually the lead in the upcoming Ready Player One. And this is a small movie for him. It's got a couple other faces you'll recognize in it. But it's just a good sort of best laid plans gone wrong type of movie. It's got an interesting, we'll call it a gimmick. It's got an interesting gimmick or mechanic to it that's fun to watch. But it's good. It's one you should definitely check out since it's available on Netflix and it's free. It's shot just recently, so it's got a good solid look to it. If you're one of those people that hates to watch old movies, watch this one. Now, number 8 is one I really enjoyed. It's called Cash Only, and it's directed by Malik Bader, who also did another movie called Street Thief, which was a really cool sort of found footage documentary following a real criminal. It was all staged, but it was a really good way to do a movie on a tight budget. Cash Only is another really well executed movie on a tight budget. It's without giving too much away, it's about a landlord that owes people money and he has to come up with a creative way to get the money. It sounds like something you've seen a bunch of times, but it's fairly different. It's fairly gritty and realistic, and it ultimately ends up in a place I've never been cinematically. Again, I'm not going to tell you what happens there, but it really sort of goes into this dark place that I was not expecting. I'm excited to see what else he does as a director, but he does a very good job of making something compelling with a very small budget. Number 7, huge movie from the 90s, so we're going to go back a little bit. That's Basic Instinct. And what a lot of people remember from this movie is Sharon Stone showing her hoo-ha off and about the midway point. But actually, this is a really cool mystery thriller. It is a noir-ish movie, and it sort of gets overlooked because they did a sequel years later that was horrible. But it's a solid flick. Is it a 9 out of 10? No, but it's a solid 6.5, and it is compelling from start to finish, and it's just a solid sort of slice of the 1990s. So watch it for no other reason than that. But it is a solid thriller still today. And we'll jump back to present day at number 6 with The Invitation. Now, this one's barely a noir movie, but I had to put it on the list because I really had trouble finding one of my lists that I could put this movie on, but I so want to recommend it because I love this movie. Fortunately, it caught on. A lot of people saw this movie, but basically it's about a man that goes to a dinner party with some old friends, and some bizarre things start to happen, and he's suspicious. And essentially, the crux of the movie is it's hard to tell whether he's imagining things or if there's something nefarious actually going on. So the reason it kind of fits in a noir is it does fit that moody, pessimistic fatalism philosophy, but he's having to sort of figure out this mystery. He's essentially having to play detective psychologically and try to figure out what's really going on, what is everybody up to. So for that, it was really, really interesting. It really just kind of kept me on the edge of my seat from start to finish. So I'm giving you a strong, strong recommendation on this one. If you like these types of movies, you need to watch this one soon. I'm not sure how much longer it'll be available. Number 5 is one I've recommended recently, but I have to recommend it here because it just fits into this so well, and I really, really liked it, and that's Cold in July. This was actually done by the same director that did Stakeland, which I've also recommended in other lists, but it's a cool 80s, now it was filmed recently, but it takes place in the 80s, and it's got a cool 80s vibe, almost a Stranger Things kind of vibe without supernatural elements. It's got a great cast in it. You'll recognize a bunch of people. Don Johnson has a really, really cool performance in it. Like, I really, really liked him in this movie. But it goes down a dark path, and you don't see it coming. You don't realize that's where it's going to go. And I kind of get tired of twists that try to shock you. This movie is very good about having twists where they're not really twists. They're like just hard turns where you think it's going one way and the movie just takes a hard left and then it jerks back to the right, and it does a really good job of just like, you never know really where the story's headed. But I love this one. I wish more people had seen it, but hopefully you will now that I'm putting this video out. Number 4, here's where we get into personal taste. I really, really like this movie. I've watched it a couple of times. This is not for everybody, so listen closely to see if it's something you would be into. Too Late stars John Hawkes as a gumshoe, as a private detective. So this is a classic noir movie with a modern twist. So it's set in present day, but the twist of this movie and what makes it so interesting is it's essentially 4 or 5, maybe 6, I can't remember, very long takes, like 15-minute single shot takes. It's only a couple of scenes, very long scenes, but every scene is all done in one solid take. Now, because of that, there's some acting elements that are weak. You feel a little bit more like you're watching a stage production. It's a little bit closer to that. So for that, it's interesting. This is sort of a festival type film. If you want to watch something that you might see in a festival at home, this one's perfect, but it's got really great banter. It's very well written. The mechanics of the camera moving around are interesting. The story's compelling. Again, there are some acting elements that there's a couple of people, I don't know how they got into the movie. I don't know if it was a stylistic choice, but it didn't work for me. But the way the movie was done was so cool, I really enjoyed it. Number 3, won't spend a lot of time on this one, but Gone Baby Gone is a solid, modern detective movie. It's got all the beats of a classic noir. It's set in modern day. It's essentially the same as those movies from the 40s and 50s, but it's set in the early 2000s in Boston. The only difference is modern times, modern camera techniques, things like that. This was directed by Ben Affleck. It was his first movie, and it was so good, in fact, that the marketing for this movie didn't even include his name. Because they didn't want people with biases against him to not go see it. And then even when The Town came out, which in my opinion is an even better movie, they marketed that as the director of Gone Baby Gone. So more people knew he did that one, but they still kept it under the radar. But eventually, you know, he's become an Academy Award-winning director. So you know, he's good in that respect. He's great here, great behind the camera. Really like this movie. Number 2, we're gonna go overseas for Old Boy. I've recommended this at least once before. I really love it. It is one of the top movies on Netflix. It's been on Netflix forever. It's not going anywhere. Do not make the mistake of watching the Spike Lee remake with Josh Brolin. Don't make that mistake. It's weird. It doesn't work. I don't know why they did it, but the original version is bonkers. It's really well crafted. It's very interesting, and it is noir reinvented. It fits the definition. It is noir, and it does so much more with the genre. It's just really, really compelling. And the only reason it's not number 1 on this list is because Christopher Nolan's Memento is currently on Netflix. Now, everything I just said about Old Boy, apply that to Memento, and then flip it upside down and reverse it. Memento, if you haven't seen it, it is a must-watch for everyone that loves movies. If you're watching this channel, odds are you've probably seen Memento, so I'm not going to labor it. I'm not going to go over it too much, but if you haven't seen it, it's a classic detective movie, but it's about a guy who has no memory, or at least no short-term memory, so he cannot make new memories. It stars Guy Pearce. It's Christopher Nolan's second movie, his first movie that he got, you know, some notoriety for, and everything, because he cannot make memories. The entire movie's in reverse, meaning each scene is in reverse sequence. You're not watching him walk backwards, but as soon as one scene ends, the next one starts, but they're in reverse order. So they've essentially taken the script and flipped all the pages and shot it that way, and it works for this movie. Likes are always appreciated. Definitely subscribe if you like content like this. I put videos out like this and other content related to movies weekly, several times a week. But thanks for watching, and you will see me next time.